The jet sits empty 300 days a year. Not because of maintenance, not because of weather. The machine is ready, the crew is waiting, the fuel tanks are full. Yet the owner rarely boards. This is not neglect, it is strategy. Billionaires understand something the merely wealthy do not. Ownership is not about use, it is about the freedom to use. The private jet represents pure optionality. At any moment, without negotiation or permission, the owner can disappear. This psychological anchor changes everything. Meetings feel different when you can leave the country in 40 minutes. Commitments carry less weight when escape velocity is always within reach. The jet does not need to fly to serve its purpose. Its value accrues in potential, not miles traveled. Consider the difference between renting and owning. When you charter, you request, you coordinate, you work within someone else's schedule. The transaction requires permission from another party, however seamless the service. Ownership eliminates the ask. This matters more than the cost differential. For someone worth billions, the expense of maintaining an idle aircraft is background noise. What they are purchasing is sovereignty. The ability to move without consultation represents a form of power that transcends transportation. Commercial aviation, even in first class, requires exposure. You pass through terminals, you interact with staff, you exist, however briefly, in public space. For the ultra-wealthy, visibility is a tax they pay only when necessary. The private jet offers something more valuable than comfort. It provides invisibility. No passenger manifests, no gate cameras, no record of movement beyond what the owner chooses to disclose. This privacy extends beyond personal preference. It becomes operational necessity. Business deals collapse when movements become predictable. Negotiations suffer when competitors know your location. Security risks multiply with each public sighting. The jet that sits unused is still working. It maintains the infrastructure of discretion. There exists a threshold in wealth where display becomes vulgar. The new rich fly constantly. They post from Teterboro and Nice. They document the champagne and the cabin. They need witnesses to their elevation. The truly wealthy understand that the most powerful statement is the one you don't make. Their jets rarely appear on tracking sites. Their movements remain undocumented. They have nothing to prove and no audience to perform for. The aircraft exists not as a symbol, but as a tool, deployed with precision and otherwise forgotten. This restraint signals something deeper than mere taste. It demonstrates security in position. When you have transcended the need for external validation, consumption patterns change entirely. The billionaire who flies commercial occasionally understands this calculus. The gesture costs nothing. It generates goodwill. Meanwhile, the jet remains fueled and ready, its existence unmentioned but understood. Every interaction contains friction. Every transaction requires trust. The privately owned jet eliminates both. You control the route, the timing, the passenger list. You choose the crew, the catering, the destination. No compromises, no committees, no voting. This level of control extends beyond logistics. The aircraft becomes a private chamber where deals close, secrets exchange, and decisions crystallize without witnesses. The cabin is not subject to recording laws that govern offices. Conversations happen off the record, in neutral airspace, with no documentation. For those who operate at the highest levels, this environment is worth the expense regardless of flight frequency. The jet provides what boardrooms and restaurants cannot: complete environmental authority. The finest private jets are not transportation. They are curated environments reflecting personal aesthetics at the highest resolution. Commissioning the interior takes years. Each material is selected. Each fixture is custom. The result is a space that exists nowhere else on Earth, tailored to the specific preferences of a single individual. This level of personalization cannot be rented. It cannot be borrowed. It requires ownership and patience. But here is the paradox. Once the space is perfected, using it becomes less necessary. The satisfaction comes from creation, not consumption. The owner has built something that reflects their exact vision. The object itself, more than its function, provides the reward. Many collectors experience this phenomenon. The acquisition and refinement process delivers more pleasure than actual use. The jet in the hangar, flawless and ready, represents achievement. Flying it is almost redundant. Maintaining an aircraft costs millions annually. Crew salaries, hangar fees, insurance, maintenance, fuel reserves. The plane accumulates expenses whether it flies or not. For a billionaire, this creates no tension. The capital required to maintain permanent readiness represents a rounding error in their portfolio. The carrying cost of the asset is irrelevant. What they are purchasing is not transportation by the mile. They are purchasing readiness itself. The knowledge that the capability exists, instantly accessible, without delay or dependency. This is the difference between wealth and extreme wealth. At a certain threshold, you stop optimizing for efficiency. You optimize for freedom. The jet that sits idle is performing its function perfectly. It stands. It requires nothing. It waits. Those who fly constantly often fly alone. They use the jet as a fast car, a personal shuttle for routine movements. Those who rarely fly often send others. The aircraft becomes a tool for key personnel, a resource deployed strategically. This reveals something about how the ultra-wealthy view assets. The jet is not a personal luxury item. It is organizational infrastructure. When the CEO needs to reach 3 continents in 48 hours, the plane flies. When the owner wants to stay home, it sits. The restraint to not use something you own requires a particular psychology. It demands you see the asset as separate from ego. The jet is not an extension of identity. It is a capability in the arsenal, used when strategic, ignored when not. Extraordinary wealth creates its own gravity. At a certain point, the world comes to you. Meetings happen at your office, your home, your estate. Negotiations occur on your terms, in your time zone. You shape the environment rather than adapting to it. The need for personal travel diminishes inversely with power. The more influential you become, the less you need to go anywhere. The jet remains essential not for where you go, but for the fact that you could go anywhere. The option must exist, even as the necessity evaporates. This is the final evolution of luxury. The thing you need least becomes the thing you value most. The empty jet in the hangar is not a waste. It is a moat, a pressure valve, a form of insurance that never pays out, but always protects. The billionaire who owns but rarely flies has understood something fundamental. The highest form of wealth is not what you do, it is what you no longer have to do.